The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. The following video is presented by the Center for Educational Media in partnership with Professional Educators of Tennessee's Leader U Conference. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
It is an absolute honor to be here this morning. I was introduced by somebody this morning, actually Miss Connie Smith. If you don't know Miss Connie, she's an incredible person. She's a warrior. She's been through the ebbs and flows of all kinds of administrations, education, etc. And I've done quite a bit of work for Miss Connie, and she's been a mentor of mine. And she was introducing me to someone else this morning. She said, Dr. Jackson is a turnaround principal. And I'd never thought of myself like that before. But I am here to tell you that not only am I honored to be here, but I'm honored to share with you a lot of the insights and journeys that I've had in the process of being in two schools that I have helped turn around. One of those being Maplewood High School in East Nashville, which is part of Metro Nashville Public Schools, where I served there as a teacher, started my career in education there, and then became an assistant principal before heading to Mount Pleasant, Tennessee in Murray County, where I now am executive lead principal of the Mount Pleasant schools. I'm housed out of Mount Pleasant High School. So today's session, today's keynote, today's talk will be just as much cathartic for me as I am actually still doing the work, and I take pride in that. I'm really big on Twitter, using Twitter as a social platform to share ideas, to learn from others. But one of the things that does frustrate me with Twitter at times is when those that are sharing aren't actively doing the work. I am still in the work. I am in the fight, in the trenches, and I'm honored to share our journey with you today. So starting off with this image here, and this picture is from a couple of years ago. I am entering my 4th year as principal of Mount Pleasant High School. At the end of year 1, which turned out to be this revolutionary year for me, life-changing, and the city of Mount Pleasant schools, we received a $500,000 grant from Parker Hannifin, which is a global filtration company. And I'll talk a little bit about the development of that, how that happened for one of the smallest high schools in the state of Tennessee. We have just around 400 kids at Mount Pleasant High School. But the question became, and since we're talking about transformation, we're talking about culture, the question for me became, well, what now? What do you do now? And I'm very competitive. I'm very passionate. I'm boots on the ground, 10 toes down. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the fight. And then year 1 is a success. We get this money. What do we do now? So we followed that up this year in particular. Really, it's been a 2-year process, but at the end of this year, we were able to curate, court, and secure 8 unique industry partners for Mount Pleasant. And I drive this point home because when I was working in Metro Nashville, we had what's called the Academies of Nashville. It's a high school model where you have this independent company called Pencil Foundation, and they help connect schools with industry partners. At Mount Pleasant, we didn't have that. We didn't have that kind of a resource. So we had to go out with helping hands, don't get me wrong, but to help curate this list of industry partners that would help change lives for students. And what we've done in the process is we're creating this unique model, this public-private powerhouse, where we're getting industries from across the board, as you can see, advanced manufacturing, banking, textile, healthcare, engineering, industrial maintenance, to work with us in helping provide as many unique opportunities as possible for students. Students, and I've got some in here who can testify to this, students in a city that had long been since forgotten, looked down upon, shamed even. So in securing these partnerships, it was not so much just the revolutionary side of how we actually work with the private industry, but it was also how these industries were now going to pour in and change the lives of kids that had before been forgotten. And that's what we're going to talk about today, building this courageous culture, the art of school transformation. Only I really want to key in on this word today, transformation. Because the interesting enigma about culture is it's just as organic as we are. It's just as molecular as we are. It's constantly changing. And if you don't keep a firm grip on it, you'll lose it really quickly. And I'd like to dig into that today. So I've given keynotes before, presentations before, where I get really fired up. I mean, I completely lose myself in the moment. And when it's over, I've heard feedback such as, well, it's easy for them, they've got that guy. And I don't want it to be that kind of presentation today. I want it to be as transparent as possible. I don't mind feedback, questioning, pushback. I mean, even if you want to jump in on a specific point, please do. But I want it to be also as organic as possible, that you understand that leadership can be very lonely, that leadership is tethered to survival, right? That if you don't understand your people, if you can't connect with your students, good luck. So it's going to be that kind of presentation today. So I'm an underdog, and I thought it relevant, imperative actually, to start with my story, quick origin story. Ryan B. Jackson, that's my father. You know, Father's Day was just a couple of days ago, so I usually share a quick anecdote. This is my father. He died young, drug overdose. And ironically here, you know, I'm holding a beer can at 2 years old. My father gave me a gene. I was predispositioned to be an alcoholic, and that ended up manifesting in my own life. So I had to overcome that. And I'm serving at the time in a school in Nashville, intense poverty, hard work, high sense of purpose, and drinking started to get the best of me as a coping mechanism. So as a leader, when I started to transition from the classroom into being more of an administrative leadership role, I had to get my head around that. You know, but my father and genes and being predispositioned to being an alcoholic wasn't the only thing. In fact, if you guys are on Twitter and you want to connect, and if you don't want to ask things privately, I speak to people about addiction all the time. So if you don't want to address something publicly, please reach out to me on Twitter. I'm always just honored to speak with people about the challenges that we're all going through. But I'm from Evansville, Indiana. And the only thing unique about Evansville, Indiana, truly, you know, is that consistently ranks in the top 10 of most miserable places to live in the United States. I grew up in an area on the south side of Evansville where I was strategically positioned between two gambling vices, right? I spent most of my time in a thoroughbred racing track in Ellis Park, which is actually in Henderson, Kentucky, right on the other side of the Ohio River from where I lived. And then a little later in my life, when the casino came into town, of course, spent plenty of time at Casino Astar. However, the thing about being in these types of environments, and my stepfather, who did the bulk of raising me, right? He was a handicap thoroughbred horse racing guy, right? So he spent lots of summers at the track, which meant I spent lots of summers at the track. You get to know people really well, right? You get to know vice really well. You get to know manipulation really well. I mean, you get to know people through and through fairly well when you're in these environments constantly. But you also understand the power of risk-taking. You understand what controlled risks look like versus reckless abandonment, okay? So I'm actually honored that I grew up here because it ended up shaping a lot of who I am today and the leader that I would become to be. Speaking of leaders, I'm gonna pause the specific keynote for a second to chime in here, because I can't talk about transformation. I can't talk about sustaining high quality, powerful leadership without telling a parallel story of how you too are going to transform. And of course, I've got my beautiful wife up here with me today. She's actually in the audience. And she and I really made a commitment. I mean, around the time when I was starting to address some of the issues that I had explicitly, meaning we were just starting to be honest with ourselves, she and I started to look at ways that we could improve ourselves. So we just started to commit to a physically fit lifestyle. And out of that, I just started getting more and more comfortable sharing my journey. Out of that then became people reaching out and saying, we too are using this to kind of maximize our potential. Thus, Fit Leaders was born. It's a lifestyle movement that is dedicated to physical, mental preparation that's going to help you sustain in leadership. You can connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, @FitLeaders, @Fit_Leaders. We've got a website as well. But why Fit Leaders? Because Peter Katzenbaum says leadership is ultimately about survival. And then start digging into the research. Start digging in. Over 40%, ages 45 through 64, have chronic hypertension. First year in Murray County Schools, one of the principals has a stroke out of the game. My first introduction to leadership. Leadership is that serious. Absolutely right, it's that serious. Look at the other one. 50% of principals never make it out of year 3. I started with a cohort of principals the same year that I did. 3 of them are gone already, didn't make it out of year 3. It's that serious. It's that intense. It's that tough. And if we do not take care of ourselves, the job will grind you down. The job will ultimately pulverize you. Leadership turnover costs school systems an estimated $163 million annually, and that's from the School Leaders Network study. So that's why Fit Leaders. That's why I continue to take care of myself. That's why I believe in balance in our lives. I'm also a Libra, as my mother would remind me, so that I need balance in my life. But I really encourage my staff, my teachers, support staff, our students to ensure that we're creating that balance in our lives. And last thing before I move on from this, we're also trying to remove the stigma of self-care, of taking care of yourself, of taking time off, of being physically fit. We're removing that stigma from us. It's okay to take care of yourself, friends, and please do so that you can continue to do great work. Because what I'm finding out is just because you've had a great year 1 does not mean you're guaranteed a great year 2. So let's make sure that you're up for the fight. And ultimately, leadership is the art of influence, and that's what we've started to do. So just some friends from around the United States, jump in with us on Twitter if you're just excited about your journey. Maybe you're a runner, maybe you're into yoga, maybe you're into lifting. These are educators from Tennessee, educators from Texas that we've connected with, and we're proud of the work we're doing with those guys. This is where I went to school. Elementary school, Kays Elementary. McGarry Middle School, both in Evansville, Indiana. These are their current ratings, and there were the ratings when I was there. So I'm no stranger to what a failing school looks like. I'm no stranger to a neighborhood, to a community that a city has given up on, that a city has forgotten about. But really, it was my time here in high school. I went to Harrison High School, home of the Warriors, where I ran cross country that started to kind of embed a seed, that it's not a sprint, that it's a marathon. That if you're truly talking about transforming a culture, if you're truly talking about leading a building, leading a community, you've got to understand it's a marathon. You're going to have some quick wins possibly. You may even have some devastating losses. They can all turn around in an instant. My time in cross country taught me that as well. But you know, I'm not the only underdog in this equation. When I think about teachers, I think about culture. Who does the lion's share of the work? It's our teachers. Now, 90% of the pictures you are going to see today are taken by me, and I'm just proud of that fact. I'm a boots-on-the-ground principal. I'm in classes. I'm in the hallways. I'm communicating with kids, with teachers. I'm taking pictures. I'm sharing their stories. I'm celebrating the good work that we do. This is Natasha McFall. She's one of our rock star teachers at Mount Pleasant. Some of her bullet points. She was Teacher of the Year 2017, 2018. She was actually Teacher of the Year for the district at the high school level for Murray County Schools. Graduate school, she does ELA, yearbook, student council, single mother of 3. And the last point, she's working 3 jobs. She's teaching, does catering on the weekends, and painting during the summer. To survive. And comes in the classroom and crushes it daily. The utmost respect for that. So it's no surprise, though, when I show you, this next fact, that there's a 35% decrease in teacher prep enrollment programs. Less and less people, millennials specifically, are opting for this profession. I mean, the data shows us this. Ask any post-secondary institution. And here's why. I mean, the expectations continue to rise. We just wish the salary would rise with it. teacher, social worker, life coach, mentor, friend. You're expected to be on call 24/7. You've got to be thick-skinned, selfless. Now, I live with the teacher, so I hear this constantly, right? These may even be her bullet points. But it's very, very real. And if you do not appreciate and respect that fact and those people that you're serving alongside, there's no way you sustain a healthy culture. This is Marisha Mitchell, one of our all-star RTI algebra teachers at Mount Pleasant. And if she were here right now, she would tell you everything on that list is true, and it makes me consider each year, am I still good enough for this fight? Kids today are coming to our teachers, tech flush, but skills starved. And this is being in Mount Pleasant has really changed my life. In terms of I had been excited about CTE, career and technical education before. When I got down to Mount Pleasant though, it was truly a metanoia. I mean, second order change. And I'm going to dig into that thinking here in a little bit, but I've seen it firsthand. Every kid's got a device, every kid. Very few of them have legitimate transferable skills that we can leverage for post-secondary success. And we're changing that in Mount Pleasant. And I'm going to dig into the specifics of that today because I'm very proud of that work. However, when we're talking about underdogs, when we're talking about culture, transformation, I mean, the real underdogs are our students. They are in an impeccable time right now. Truly, truly a threshold. My wife and I are having this conversation yesterday. I read a New York Times piece about companies leveraging the power of social media, which they all do, using fake people, CGI people, that they're making look like real people. They've got their own Instagram accounts, Twitter accounts. They interact with their followers. It creeped me out something serious. And I'm a social media guy. So here I'm thinking, in Murray County, we still debate quite heavily textbook versus Chromebook. I mean, we're still having these conversations. And man, they're creating CGI people to advertise for their companies, and you don't know they're CGI. We're creating autonomous vehicles, and we're still debating textbook versus Chromebook. Our kids right now are in this very interesting threshold in this time of our life, specifically in education. Look at our rapidly changing economy. Standing inside Trevecca, and I'm an alum, but I'm going to call it, we've got a broken post-secondary system. Somebody asked me what I think will be the biggest change in the next 10 years. I really believe it will be post-secondary. I think it's a fractured system and it may implode. Why? The student loan debt is legitimately a student loan crisis. I'm telling my students every day, every single day, if you can avoid paying going to college, if that means avoiding a four-year institution, then let's find a better solution for you. Because I'm not going to have you shackled to student loan debt, indentured servitude for the next 30 years so somebody else can benefit. I mean, this is the kind of keynote you're getting today. I hope that's what they wanted, but that's what you're getting. Our kids are over-tested, schools are underfunded, and there's little to no future planning. We're changing that in Mount Pleasant. So you think about that as a triangle, and I'm presenting a different triangle. But you've got the leader, the principal, you've got the teachers that are doing the lion's share of the work, and you've got the students whose lives we're trying to continuously change. So you've got that triangle, and then fit those in this triangle here, which this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? One of, if the not, most pinnacle diagrams you need to know. You need to keep at the heart of everything you do. And I think for a good bit, schools have gotten much better here. We're focusing more on the physiological needs of students. Shout out Murray County. We've got 3 schools throughout the summer where any student, anybody under the age of 18 can come and get free breakfast, free lunch. I mean, we're taking people in Murray County throughout the summer, okay? This is a question mark. Let's be for real. But it's become an emphasis. At least we're focusing more on it. This rung right here, the love belonging rung. If you can't capture that at your school, good luck sustaining a positive culture. Because the idea is, if we don't feel like we belong, we're searching for somewhere else to go. It's how gangs became prevalent, okay? It's why we're attracted to people who show us attention on the front end of a relationship and then treat us like crap on the back end of a relationship. But yet we feel like we belong. We create these codependent relationships. Here's what most people don't understand though. They're starting to get their head around this. Let's make people feel like they belong. Let's encourage kids. But Maslow told us, you can't get here, which he called efficacy, which really just means feeling capable. So you can't even get a kid to feel capable, or a new teacher in any principal in here is going to appreciate this fact, because most of our teachers now are new, fresh out of the box, especially if you're serving in a large district. You can't get teachers to feel capable until they feel like they belong. It's contingent upon, Maslow would say. So if we miss this, there's no shot here, but yet the state expects us to be here. Well, self-actualization just literally translates to being your best. So we want kids to be our best. We want teachers to be their best. But we're lacking here. So let's dig into it. I talked about two schools, Maplewood High School, Mount Pleasant High School. The idea of a courage to create, the courage to create a better life for yourself, the courage to create a better community that surrounds you, was really birthed out of my time at Maplewood High School. I started to dig into the power of project-based learning. I started to learn how to leverage the holistic learning of art to maximize student potential. Why? I wanted students thinking more like creators, not merely consumers of content. How could we get back to creating? So, I had a company, Nashville Electric Service in Nashville, NES. They were our big partner at Maplewood, and they approached us. I had put out a tweet early in the year that we wanted to do something with drones. So NES approaches us and says, wow, you're thinking like we're thinking. We want to do a drone feasibility study. The 500-year flood had taught Nashville Electric Service a huge lesson, that without this kind of technology, it's going to be a hard time expediting the work that needed to be fixed. Had we had drones, they could have flown in areas, et cetera, et cetera. So they requisitioned us to do this feasibility study. We didn't want to stop there. I wanted as many kids to have their hands on drone technology as possible. So we leveraged that project and got, through Donors Choose, some bebop drones. And through our arts classes, we had students modifying the drones to create paintings in class. We partnered with the Red Arrow Gallery, and our students sold about $1,200 worth of original paintings that they'd made through modified drones. That, to me, was the origin of this Courage to Create philosophy. I took that and parlayed it into a city that had long been forgotten, that had been stepped on, looked down upon, and inspired this with this sense of a creator's mindset. And that's our student on the right, Chloe Bear, my first year there. I talk her into creating a postage cancellation stamp that would become a piece of stamp collector's history, and got her on the newspaper that day. And I believe that art breathes life into the soul of a school. And I just wanted to have that up there today. Because I believe if you're a principal, if you're an administrator right now, and you are not pouring into your arts programs, because you're getting ready to hear me talk a lot about CTE, and I'm very passionate about it. But you got to use both sides of your brain. So at a school with only 400 students, we offer visual arts, band, color guard, dance, theater, drama, choir. We offer 6 to 7 different unique arts pathways. Why? Because I need a student to feel like they are connected to something. I need a student each and every day to have a creative outlet that gets them away from the books, butts, and buses and stressors that we put them under as a school system. Art does that. It breathes life into the soul of a school. This is becoming our crisis. I don't care what school you work in, what tier you work at. This is becoming our crisis right here. So these are the labor shortfall projections. They're very real, okay? Look at the 2024 projections. What this says is, right now, an estimated 181,000 electrician positions cannot be filled. Carpenters, plumbers, HVAC tech. Why is that? Well, because baby boomers are retiring at 10,000 people a day. It's just a hard fact. So that workforce, that labor force is retiring, and today's students are tech flush and skill starved. And we've done our students an incredible disservice, and I've been a part of this system for 15 years. We've made students feel like if you don't go to a four-year university, if you don't chase that college dream, that a blue-collar lifestyle is shameful, right? Plumber's crack, six-pack. We've made kids feel that you're less than. Well, anyone that has had to write a check to a plumber within the last 2 years will tell you really quickly that these people can set their price, okay? Because you ain't fixing the toilet. Most of us aren't, okay? So the game has truly changed, and I'm telling my students this all the time. And I'm going to share probably one of our bigger successes here in just a little bit. But these are hard facts. So we're changing what school looks like at Mount Pleasant. In terms of CTE, at a school of only 400 students, we offer construction, agriculture, mechatronics, health and consumer science, family consumer science, business management. I want my students to graduate with legitimate skills, industry certifications, leverageable skills that can make them successful at any post-secondary pathway, not just a four-year institution. Certainly not shackled by student loan debt. So I'm asking our teachers, I'm asking my guidance counselor. In fact, I told my school counselor, I want you to stop thinking like a school counselor. I want you to start thinking as a talent scout. I want you to start meeting with students individually and connecting, identifying what their passions are, what gets them to school. Only we're not waiting until they get to high school now. I mean, I'm the executive lead over a campus, so actually our middle school principal, Dr. Tim Drinkwine, he leads a system we have, which is our post-secondary pathway system. It's getting kids to start taking interest inventory surveys at 5th grade, because I want to identify what gets them excited about coming to school. And then I want to align those interests with the programs and pathways that we don't have at school. And if we start to see a growing number of interests from our kids, then we need to start adding those pathways, because we're going to start listening to children. These are the people that we serve. So, nationwide, 3 out of 10 high school grads who go to four-year public universities haven't earned degrees within 6 years. Post-secondary doesn't care. They're getting the money. Look at the four-year private, it's even worse. That number is more than 1 in 5. I took this picture, I'm proud of that. Welding. But these are dirty jobs. Who wants these jobs? Well, 30 million jobs in the United States pay an average of $55,000 a year, and they don't require a bachelor's degree. And I love my wife, so I'm going to bring it up. She tells me all the time, I don't make that much money. More reality for you. You know, 1.2 million high school students drop out annually. And I'm a high school guy. I've been in high school the last 15 years. That's 7,000 kids a day that are making a decision to drop out. I don't care, not my problem, okay? Understand, schools are microcosms of society. We deal with every type of student, every type of personality, especially those working in public education. Well, 75% of crimes are committed by high school dropouts. You should care. Man, we are in this together, collectively. You know, I've got a friend in here who's working at Spring Hill High School. We work in the south end of the county at Mount Pleasant. He and I are in this together. It is our job to make Murray County great. So yes, we should care, because 75% of crime is committed by high school dropouts. And we know that 7,000 students are dropping out a day. And I'm telling you, there's a correlation to what we're offering, what we're selling at school. So these days at Mount Pleasant, they're getting a different message. Because there is another way. And I wanted to juxtapose that with something beautiful. This is our greenhouse at Mount Pleasant. So we're growing some hydroponics, growing some tomatoes here. Our flower garden is also always a big hit in the spring. There is another way. There's another way to do school. And I talk to my staff all the time, about the yin and the yang, chaos and order. There are certain things we've just got to toe the line on. We have to keep order on. And I'm here to tell you, you just heard the commissioner speak today. Believe it, friends. Standardized testing is here and we have to deal with it. And I tell my people that all the time. It's a necessary evil. We deal with it. But the chaos side of things, that's innovation, that's growth, that's risk-taking, that's the experience that we offer for kids. It can be balanced. We can do both. And that's what we do at Mount Pleasant. I call it breaking the machine, that industrial age model, the conveyor belt system. Start here, end here, see you later. The high school as a factory model. We're breaking that down. I'm tired of it. A little bit about Mount Pleasant, because I just want you to know how real it is. So it's a city of only about 5,200 people, little bedroom community next to Columbia. Per capita income, under 17,000. Has lots of different names. One is Methamphetamine Alley, Mount Misery, Mount Meth. Really the most predominant one is Rat Town. That was Mount Pleasant. That was the city that I was brought into, really unbeknownst to me at the time. In fact, and I love my director, his name is Dr. Chris Marzak, great guy, visionary, courted me to come down. He said, "You're gonna love it, man, it's an art school." All right. I get down there and inherit a $350,000 lawsuit. Kid had his jaw shattered the year before. No one was coming to the school. It was dying. It was literally dying. They had no arts programs. Okay? They were trying to build arts programs, but they didn't have any that had been long-standing at the time. School had a reputation, a stigma. It was unsafe. It was drug-ridden, gang-filled. I'm like, what? Well, at one point, the city had a 25% unemployment rate, 20% of their people living below the poverty line. This was once the phosphate capital of the world. It was flush for like 100 years. By the 80s, by the early 90s, when phosphate had dried up and the chemical plants moved out of town, the youth and the brain trust went with it, and those that didn't leave were those that couldn't, or those that were traditionally rooted in the city. And man, they fell on hard times. So it's an honor to stand up here in front of you and say, we've spent the last 3 years as a team, as an organization, being the catalyst for this city, for this community, to give its pride back to it and to give its youth hope for a better future. And I'm actually sitting with 2 educators in here today who help us do that work. My wife, Leticia Skay, who's a teacher at the middle school, and then, oh my gosh, Miss Lou Ray Henry, who's an assistant principal at Mountain Pleasant Middle School. First week on the job, I tell the kids, very explicit with children, very transparent. Kids today are pragmatic and they're practical. What is in it for me and how are you going to help me? They have so much access to information. If you are not explicit with kids, they see right through you and really want nothing to do with you. They have so many other avenues to connect with. So I'm just very explicit with kids. I said, we're going from outcast to outstanding. And I'm just very bold. If you're going to enter a situation, enter with boldness. And I told the kids, no one will talk crazy about us anymore. No one will laugh at us anymore. We will be under no one's boot heel anymore. Kids just responded immediately. Immediately. Took that picture the first Friday of school. Proud of that picture. First week of school, kids are talking about it, tweeting about it. And I've shared this before. This was after literally the first week of my first, year on the job. And the kids were just so excited. Good first week of school, y'all. Go follow the principal and watch the changes made at the Mount. Even hashtagged it in there. I love that. We called ourselves the Mount. I had to change the identity of the school for a little while because it had such a stigma. I had to give the kids, the community, its people, something to rally around. And that's why we created the Mount. And I knew it had gotten real when the dollar store was selling t-shirts that said the Mount. This community needed it at that time. They needed a champion. They needed an identity, a different identity. They needed hope. Zig Ziglar tells us when there's hope for the future, there's power in the present. And that's what's happening now in Mount Pleasant. I love to share this picture because people ask me all the time. So you go to Mount Pleasant from Nashville, you've got long hair, very bold, and people just bought into it. No, they didn't just buy into it right away. Most of them thought I was nuts. But I grabbed those front runners. I grabbed those that were willing to try. I grabbed those that had either A, been there so long and were tired of being ridiculed, or B, had just gotten there and thought, I'm with this nut because I'm new too. But this guy was not either of one of those. This is John Welch, still an English teacher with me today. First year there, he was not a Kool-Aid sipper. He said, you are my fourth principal in 10 years, okay, and I know there's schools that have had that worse, but for him, that was a big deal. You're my fourth principal in 10 years. The last two here weren't longer than 3 apiece, and I'll outlast you. We were just real, he was a General Patton kind of guy, right? And that's okay. I made him right where he was. John, I understand. I put this picture up here because it was a threshold kind of day. I spent the entire first year of Mount Pleasant focusing on culture. I didn't dig into PLCs. We weren't even talking about instructional goals necessarily. It was about changing mindsets, changing the culture, making kids feel like they belong, making the community feel like they had something to be proud about. So each week we're doing something a little different regarding culture. This happened to be Throwback Jersey Day. I'm a huge Chicago Cubs fan, okay? Nuts about the Cubs. So I've got on my 1969 throwback Chicago Cubs jersey, and it's really just a regular old Friday at the Mount. We're doing something kind of fun, keeping the kids excited, getting some staff involved, and in walks John Welch. And not only was I not expecting this, but I had to take a guy who's not into taking pictures. I mean, as you can see, you can't really tell the detail, but he loves to wear socks and sandals, and he tells me all the time, don't take a picture of my socks and sandals. But he just loves to wear them like that. Hey, man, that's your thing. But he comes in with this jacket, and I took a double take. I said, John, where did you get that jacket, man? That's awesome. He said, this is a original out-of-the-box Kellogg's mail-order Dream Team jacket, and I've never had a reason to wear it. I said, you own that jacket? I wanted that jacket. Like it was new, crispy. Like clearly he took care of this thing. And he was so proud to have it on. And we took that picture, and I just, lifted him up about the jacket all day. Kids were trying it on and naming the different people. The mailman, Carl Malone on the front. Like, we're educating kids that day. We had a breakthrough that day because of that jacket, man. And that's what I'm talking about, culture and transformation. It can turn on a dime. Somebody, you and I were having this conversation. I'm not saying he was a hater. He just hadn't bought in. He was cynical, man. He was jaded. But he turned on a dime and became our biggest advocate. Last year, he led the state in English 3 scores. I mean, he crushed it. And then was happy when they took English 3 away from T and Reddy. But that's another story. But that's my John Welch story. And I love that guy now. He's amazing. We've partnered with people you would have never thought we partnered with in a city of only 5,200 people. That was known as Mount Meth. We partnered with NASA. I signed a 4-year Congress-approved contract to be a part of their Hunch program. High schools united with NASA to build hardware for the International Space Station. We partnered with O'Moore College of Design to give our kids access to high-quality arts post-secondary institutions, just to give them a vision of what they could be. And it was bigger than just a vision. We had created a theater program. We've now done 3 successful spring musicals, but I wanted more than that. I wanted our students to start designing and actually creating wardrobes for other schools. So if you needed a wardrobe for Hello Dolly, you come to Mount Pleasant and we will help construct that for you. We can do that. Then I took a selfie outside of NASA because I think it's cool. We partnered with NASA. We brought an astronaut down, introducing them to kids, celebrating our signing day. I got to watch my time here, so I'm going to float. We added 1-to-1. Dr. Marzak wanted Murray County to be a one-to-one district. So I told Mount Pleasant, I said, you know what? We're going to enter this thing with boldness. We're going to be the first school to go through the rubric, to get teachers vetted, to get kids excited, and we're going to be one-to-one. And sure enough, we were, to the chagrin of a lot of folks. Why is Mount Pleasant doing that? He didn't give us anything. We convinced our faculty and our student body to chase excellence, to be different, to go for things they never thought they would have went for before, and we got it. Now I want to be explicit. At the end of year 1, we were at TASL level 1. I told you, we did not focus on instructional practices. I did not commit to PLCs. We weren't doing any combative formative assessments. None of that. Algebra 1, kicked my teeth in. However, we did not get off course. We stuck with culture, but we started building our structures and our systems around the culture that we built, okay? So we did start implementing PLCs. We did start looking at student work. We did start setting SMART goals. We did start getting kids to own these goals that they were setting, internalizing them, chasing that excellence. We took the idea of the mount and started talking about chasing that excellence up that mountain, that it's just as much about the journey as it is the destination. And at the end of year 3, at the end of year 2, we were at TASL level 3. You don't throw a parade for a TASL level 3, but it's where the district says you ought to be. So I told my staff, look at that. In a single year, you jump 2 points. Naturally, the goal this year was to be a level 5. Leave a level 5 legacy is what we said all year. Who knows? We'll see. We tell our story. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. And I really took this from my time at Maplewood High School. I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm constantly sharing, just constantly pushing it out there. And here's why. So when I was at Maplewood as a teacher, I resurrected the school's journalism program, okay? And through that, we started competing in the Tennessee High School Press Association. We competed against schools like Harpeth Hall, all girls, elite, private. We ended up getting 3rd one year overall for our news magazine. 3rd place overall. And the only people that really knew about it were those that were there in attendance that day. I didn't have that power of social media yet to leverage what these kids were doing and showcase this incredible work. I do that now. We're also seeing improvement in our achievement. Here's our ACT scores, right? After really just focusing on culture for a year, look at the class of 2018. They started to believe in themselves. Remember, you can't feel esteem, the feeling of being capable, until you feel like you belong. Concurrently, look at the discipline drop-off. Jaw-shattering year, lawsuit, next year. Restorative practices, sitting kids down, atonement, right? Getting kids to own things, walking them through the healing process with each other so beefs don't fester, they don't blister up. We address them head on. So much so, we were recognized for going an entire semester with no violence. I get our kids to make a commitment at the beginning of the year. Literally, and this comes from Michael Glass's work, Schools Without Failure. This is something I created. Get kids to make commitments, then get them to own it. So I get them to raise their hand. I want you to make a commitment to nonviolence. So before you commit that act of violence, you have that thought. You remember when you raised your hand and you made that commitment, because you'll answer to me when it's done. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, did you make a commitment? Yes, I did. We were recognized for that, and I'm proud of that work. And ultimately, this is about kids. Are you creating experiences that have your pep rallies of a school of only 400 kids looking like that? Proud of their school, proud of of what they've helped create. And when you have an all-white affair, your student wears his white jacket, and you got to take a picture of that. Back to that. First year in, $500,000. But I tell my people all the time, even before we got the $500,000, we had no idea we were going to get that much money. Parker Hannafin gave us that, and here's how we got that. We were connected with a company called Clarcor, which was more regional. We'd started partnering with Clarcor because of a conversation that I had with the vice president, and it did not start well. I go to see the vice president, and as soon as I extend my hand, he says, we gave your school $10,000 and I heard it was spent on bleachers. I'm very upset with you. I just owned it in the moment. I'd never met this man before. Sir, I'm terribly sorry about that. We're going to fix that. Then, trying to steer the conversation, I said, and I will work on that as soon as I can find an algebra teacher. He's like, really? You having a tough time finding an algebra teacher? Yes, sir, I am. An impossible time, actually. This was 3 years ago. He says, well, let me tell you what it's like trying to hire someone to work at a research and development arm of an innovative company in Mount Pleasant. It's almost impossible. I can help you with that, I said. That was my first comment. I can help you with that. And from that, we started a year-long collaboration that ended in Parker Hannafin acquisitioning Clarcor. And as Clarcor is about to go out of business, essentially, they've got a nonprofit grant arm. They bring a trustee down. He sees what's happening at the school. He understands the mission. He sees the lives we're changing, and they just give us the entire pot of what's left. And that happened to be $500,000. But before we got that, because I'm talking and I'm collaborating all year with Ryan Pastrana, Vice President, I'm telling my kids, man, we got to have vision. We want these people to understand that we're not just asking for money, we're asking for collaboration, we're asking for a partnership. So we had the kids create in what was really a destitute part of the building that was filled with just junk, garbage. We cleaned it out, and we had them use SketchUp, which is a free app, to create what our innovation lab would become. And once we did that, the trustee was like, absolutely. This is a quote from the newspaper that was written when we got that check from a student. We were the downtrodden, the forgotten. Education is now cool for all of us. We want to go into careers in engineering and math. That is what we want to do with our lives. And I stood up there that day and got teary-eyed, because that's what it's all about. Ultimately, you want the people that you're serving to feel like they belong and they're proud of where they are. Thank you, guys. That's my time.